Recently, YouTuber The Amazing Atheist made a video about objective morality in which he took the stance that it doesn't exist. And then every crackpot on the internet came out of the woodwork to tell him he's objectively wrong. Now I gotta point out that not believing in objective morality is not the same thing as not believing in morality or being immoral, and a lot of people assume that because they're fucking stupid. Derp. The problem with this subject is one must acknowledge the contextual meaning of objectivity and if a concept can be considered real. Personally, I find it self-evident that morality is a construct invented by humans. It isn't inherently true, in that concepts of good and evil don't exist without people to define them. If the universe was devoid of sentient life, you wouldn't say that asteroids colliding with each other randomly was good or bad. If an eagle eats a rabbit, from the rabbit's point of view, that's a terrible injustice and evil visited upon it. From the eagle's point of view, he's just feeding his fucking kids.
You're a monster!
The common stance is that you couldn't call the eagle evil for wanting to eat. But the natural order of things is, by our definition, immoral. The strong trample the weak. And society is our attempt to subvert that natural order with our idea of fairness. It's an idea we came up with to soften the cruel world to our liking. And we ask people to behave in a certain way to enforce that. And if they don't, then we either shame them or use punitive measures.
When is my lawyer coming?
However, I could postulate that morality isn't something we invented, but rather something we discovered and continue to unveil. Perhaps there is an objective right and wrong, and that we as human beings just aren't evolved enough to come to a consensus on what it is. Sort of a moral universalism stance. In the scenario that the eagle eats the rabbit, does the necessity of feeding one's offspring negate the suffering and evil of brutally tearing a live rodent to pieces? To cause losses to others for your gain? When you break it down. Good and evil aren't quantifiable, measurable aspects of the universe. Minimizing suffering is good to us, but the universe itself doesn't give a shit. It's indifferent. It's like the rules of Texas Hold'em. The rules of poker aren't inherently real, and you won't find poker being played in the natural world. But once the rules of Texas Hold'em were set, then they could be said to exist as a concept. And from there you could say that there is an objectively true way to play a proper game of Texas Hold'em. No, don't get me wrong, in my opinion that's really just semantics, and I'm playing devil's advocate here. But by this outlook, you can take something like circumcision and say, our best definition of evil is that which causes harm or duress to an unconsenting innocent bystander, and behaviors that put others at a loss for your gain. This is because such behaviors have a measurably negative impact on both the individual and the herd in the long run. Now, you may disagree with this premise, but unless you can come up with a better explanation of evil based on facts and reason, it stands as the best definition. Therefore, cutting a baby's dick beyond its will is objectively wrong by that definition of good and evil. And once you're kicked out of the bris, the parents will say something like, it was God's will, or it's a health issue. And at that point, we have to use logic and reason again to determine which point of view actually causes the least detriment to people. Therefore, being the least evil according to our preconceived definition. Clearly, God's will or the erroneous cleanliness claim are piss-poor arguments, and you could argue that not mutilating your newborn's genitals to appease a fictional character is objectively good. But this all falls apart because we are assuming there is a single true morality, or that human experience itself is meaningful, and assumptions are the exclusive domain of fucking idiots. Now, there are various schools of thought on ethics that stem from various ethical dilemma scenarios. Is it okay to steal bread to feed your starving family? Well, no, it's wrong no matter why you do it, right? That would be moral absolutism. But say the store owner has insurance and he can afford it. These are children's lives at stake, and that supersedes the store owner's petty property rights. A good man would feed the kids even at his own expense, right? That perhaps would fall under virtue ethics. Now, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? Would you blow up a bus full of kids to save a city full of people? If so, you might believe in utilitarian ethics. Now, some would say that good is to minimize suffering, but by that definition, killing is okay if the victim doesn't suffer. So is there any value or sanctity to life itself? And if so, are you still okay with crushing spiders? Well, killing is wrong, so no. Don't kill the spider. But, allowing the spider to remain, he could possibly be deadly, and therefore you're putting other people at risk, which means not killing the spider is an immoral act. There are a lot of thought experiments that really call into question any single objective truth or moral sets.
Here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
You see, morals weren't passed down from deities on high, and clearly the God of Abraham doesn't understand ethics or hypocrisy anyhow, but they also aren't intrinsically true aspects of the universe either. They developed because we are apes that live in a pack, and pack mammals tend to develop altruistic behavior. You don't see that sort of behavior in reptiles or insects because they live solitary lives. That's how morals came about, and it's an evolutionary response. Even at my most nihilistic, I can point out factual reasons why ethically good behavior is more beneficial in the long run to both me and the pack as a whole. There's no reason why our sense of right and wrong would be some spooky universal truth, rather than a response to our environment. It's basically an agreement we've all come to. I don't want to be harmed, and neither do you, so we'll follow this set of rules. But a collective agreement still isn't objectively true, and that's why I have to side with TJ, because even if we could come to a consensus on right and wrong, we'd still have to acknowledge it's by our own design.